what's up, hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be talking about my most anticipated books to come out in 2021. Every year, I do this video and I never get to every book on the list, but I just wanted to put together some of my most anticipated young adult fiction and adult fiction novels releasing in the new year that I hope to get to. And if you were on the hunt for some amazing new releases like myself, I want to give a big thank you to today's video sponsor, which is Book of the Month. Book of the Month is an awesome subscription service that chooses a curated selection of 5 of the best new and upcoming releases for you to choose from. You choose the book that you're most interested in, and you can also add on some of their other selections if you like more of them, and they will be delivered right to your door. They also have a risk-free skip policy, so you can skip a month anytime for any reason. I really do love Book of the Month, and I've read a ton of great books through their service, but I especially appreciate how every month there's a selection for like any type of reader. They have romance, science fiction, fantasy, mystery, thrillers, historical fiction, and more. For their January box, you can choose from The Survivors by Jane Harper, and this is a mystery thriller about a man who is living with the consequences of a reckless mistake he made years ago, but he travels to his hometown with his new family, and a lot of the events from the past are coming to light when a young girl is found murdered on the beach. Outlawed by Anna North, which takes place in the Old West of 1894, and it follows a young girl who has been married for a year with no pregnancy, so she decides to join forces with a local gang that has recently hatched a plan that might get them all killed. The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr., which seems to be a stunning debut novel about 2 enslaved men that fall in love on a plantation in the Deep South. The Removed by Brandon Hobson, which is heavily inspired by Cherokee folklore and follows an estranged family plagued by grief, loss, drug abuse, and more as they meet for their yearly bonfire, and how the events of this year's takes them deeper into the unraveling boundaries between the normal world and the spirit world. And The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai, which follows a woman who ends up asking her childhood crush to be her fake fiance to fulfill her parents' expectations for her, and he accepts because his inheritance is dependent on him being married. So these are all of the Book of the Month choices for January, and I'm honestly intrigued by so many of these. They sound very unique and unlike a lot of books that I've read from before. And if you are also interested in any of these titles, you can get your first box for only $9.99 with the code NEWBOOKS, and that is the best price you can find for any of these titles anywhere. So thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video, and for now, let's get on to some other books I am excited to read in 2021. So starting off on January 12th, we have Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. I loved The Hate U Give. It was one of my favorite books of the year when it came out, and I even wrote a college paper on it, but I'm extremely excited to get the story of Star Carter's father, Big Mav. Concrete Rose follows 17-year-old Maverick, who is just trying to survive and make it through high school while slinging drugs for one of the largest gangs in his area when he finds out that he has a son. So it is the story of a young black teen trying to make something of himself, learning what it means to be a man while also dealing with unanticipated fatherhood and the death of a loved one. On January 19th, we have This Will Be Funny Someday by Katie Henry. This is a book that I was given an ARC of by the publisher, and I've already read it and loved it, but I'm super excited for it to be out in the world for all of you to read as well. If you don't recognize the name, this is the author of Heretics Anonymous, which is a book I've been talking about on my channel for years, and I am just so excited for Katie Henry's 3rd book to be out. This book follows 16-year-old quiet and well-behaved Izzy, who doesn't feel like she really has a voice at home or in school. Izzy accidentally stumbles into a bar and finds herself on stage at a comedy night, and through there she finds a group of college students who are interested in showing her the ways around amateur comedy and really helping her foster some confidence and boldness within herself. While Izzy is beginning to discover herself for the very first time, her new friends do not know that she's in high school, so she is constantly trying to keep up with the lies she's telling her new friends, as well as her family and controlling boyfriend. I love that this book brings attention to emotionally abusive and toxic relationships in teens, but I also feel like a lot of people will be able to relate to Izzy like I did myself. So if you're looking for a funny contemporary to put on your 2021 TBR, This Will Be Funny Someday is definitely one you should check out. On January 19th, we have Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. This book takes place in 1954 San Francisco Chinatown, which is not a very welcoming place for Chinese American lesbians like Lily and her girlfriend Kathleen. Beneath the widespread paranoia about the potential rise of communism known as the Red Scare, as well as the looming deportation of Lily's father, Lily and her girlfriend risk it all when they find a place for themselves in a lesbian bar called the Telegraph Club. I'm not one to really get super hyped about historical fiction, but I found out about this book through Blonde with a Book's most anticipated video, and it just really caught my eye. I feel like it is going to be such an emotional, hard-hitting, yet entertaining book, and I can't wait to read it. On January 26th, we have If I Disappear by Eliza Jane Brazier. This follows a young woman named Sejr who loves listening to true crime podcasts. So when her favorite true crime podcast host goes missing, she is determined to try and use all the knowledge that she's gained over the years to try and find her. But as Sejr, or Sarah, digs deeper into this investigation, she discovers that the host, Rachel, is not the first person to go missing from this isolated ranch, and I'm assuming she's going to get more involved than she ever anticipated. I'm not a big podcaster personally, but I love true crime content and I love mystery thrillers like this, so the premise sounds super interesting to me. On February 2nd, we have The Project by Courtney Summers. Our main character's name is Lo, and she has been living with her great aunt since her parents died and her sister joined a group called the Unity Project, which supposedly does lots of community outreach and charitable work, but Lo believes there is something much darker and deeper within the group, and she has spent 6 years of her life so far trying and failing to prove it. A man named Lev enters Lo's life, claiming that the Unity Project killed his son, so the two of them team up together to expose and investigate what this group is really about, and hopefully this will lead Lo to reuniting with her sister once and for all. This book has been pitched to me as a book about cults, which I feel is very evident from the synopsis, and I loved Courtney Summers' previous release, Sadie, which honestly feels a little bit similar to If I Disappear, so I'm just really excited for this one. Also coming out on February 2nd, we have This Close to Okay by Lisa Cross Smith, and I actually got this copy through a different Book of the Month box a few months ago. This book follows a therapist named Tally who is driving home from work and witnesses a man attempting suicide by jumping off of a bridge, so she convinces him to come home with her and have a cup of coffee, but Tally is really committed to providing a safe space for Emmett without letting him know that this is also kind of her day job. It appears to tell the story of two strangers who met completely by chance but needed one another more than they expected. So I'm really interested in this one as someone who is a therapist in training, and I definitely think this is going to be one of the next contemporary adult fiction books that I read, so I hope it's a good one. Coming out on February 23rd, we have Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This is a debut novel about a 28-year-old named Grace who has recently completed her PhD and goes off to Vegas with her friends to celebrate and ends up getting drunkenly married to a woman she just met. This act is completely out of character for Grace, but it causes her to start questioning why she's following her father's plans for her and why she is stuck in a struggling job market and feeling burnt out after all of her studies and whatnot, that she decides to flee to a summer in New York with a wife she barely knows. And as Grace starts to develop real feelings for her new wife, all of the things she's running from start to catch up with her, like past family scars and kind of finding her place in the world. And it just seems like a really beautiful novel about adulthood, relationships, connection, and I think it'll be a really, really good one. On March 2nd, we have the book that I am most anticipating, of course, which is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare, which is the second book in the Last Hour series. Now, this synopsis is super spoilery for Chain of Gold, so I don't want to share too much about it. but it seems like Chain of Iron holds a lot of secrets. We have a false marriage where one partner is in love with somebody else. We have a character who is attempting to raise somebody from the dead, someone who has sworn an oath to a mysterious dark power, all while there is a serial killer targeting shadow hunters in London, and it seems that the killer might be among our main cast. I, of course, absolutely loved Chain of Gold. Cassie Clare is my favorite author, and the Shadowhunter Chronicles is, of course, my favorite series ever. But Chain of Gold has such a compelling cast of characters with such unique dynamics to one another, so I'm really excited to see where all of these character stories go and how the world even grows from here. On April 6th, we have You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes, which is apparently the third book in the You series. I had no idea this book even existed. You may have heard of the hit TV show and series called You, and this is the third installment, which follows our main character Joe as he has moved out to the Pacific Northwest and is attempting to start a new life and possibly even his own family. Joe ends up working at a library and sets his sights on a librarian named Mary Kay, who he wants to finally earn the old-fashioned way, but there are quite a few obstacles in place, such as the fact that she is a mother and is really busy. So it seems like we're just along for the ride of a train wreck of Joe stalking and obsessing over a woman, probably killing some people along the way. I think we all know that I absolutely despised book 2 in this series called Hidden Bodies. It was trash, so I'm really hoping that book 3 can come out with something fresh and new, bring back all the things I loved about the first book in this series. And I wouldn't say I'm setting my expectations too high. I'm just like really hoping this one isn't also a waste of time. On April 27th, we have Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Q. Sutano. And I found out about this one through Lily C. Reed's most anticipated book. I want to just read you the tagline of it, it seems, because it's very interesting. 1 accidental murder, 2,000 wedding guests, 3 maybe cursed generations, and 4 meddling Asian aunties to the rescue. This seems to be a super hilarious novel about a woman who accidentally kills her blind date and calls her mother for help, who then recruits the rest of her aunties in order to take care of the body. Unfortunately, all goes awry because Medi's family owns a successful wedding business, and so they have accidentally shipped the dead body in a cooler to a billionaire's wedding. It seems to be a really interesting combination of a quirky rom-com with a sort of murder mystery twist, as well as a celebration of family and Chinese Indonesian culture. It just sounds absolutely fantastic, so I'm excited to give this one a try. Coming out on May 6th, we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuestion, who is the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue. So this book follows a 23-year-old woman named August who has recently moved to New York City, and it is just not shaping up to be the romantic cinematic life she's expected. But her life is upturned when August begins to form a crush on a beautiful girl on her subway commute, and it seems like there's some kind of otherworldly, maybe supernatural twist here, because she finds out that Jane is actually displaced from 1970s Brooklyn. She is from a different time. So I have no clue how this story works or is going to unfold, but August is determined to return Jane to her own time. I love Red, White, and Royal Blue, so I am totally down for a new rom-com from Casey McQuestion. I'm really interested to see what she does with this story. It just sounds so funny and heartwarming and cute, and I can't wait to read it. On May 13th, we have another cute queer story coming out, and that is Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. This graphic novel saga follows 2 boys at an all-boys school named Charlie and Nick, who up until this point have gone from friends to boyfriends, and it appears that they are getting ready to take their relationship to the next level and tell each other that they love them. But on the one hand, Nick has still not come out to his dad, and it appears that Charlie might be developing an eating disorder. I adore Heartstopper. I think the illustration style is fantastic and really carries the story, and they are just warm, fuzzy, feel-good books. But I didn't enjoy Volume 3 as much because I just felt like there was no conflict. It just seemed like everything has worked out so well in this story, and I want more substance to it. And it seems like the presence of Volume 4 is introducing some new themes that I think are really going to make the story more satisfying for me. So I'm pumped. I know a lot of you are as well, and if you haven't picked up Heartstopper yet, now is definitely the time to start. On May 25th, we have another highly anticipated novel coming out as well, which is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is set in 1983 Malibu, and it follows a group of 4 siblings who are all pretty famous. They are like champion surfers and supermodels and photographers, and every year they host an annual end of summer party that is like the talk of the city that everyone wants to attend. It seems that all of the siblings have their own stories and secrets that they are hiding from one another, and while the book is set over the course of only 24 hours, by morning the Riva household goes up in flames. Taylor Jenkins Reid is the author of 2 of my all-time favorite books, Daisy Jones and the Six and The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I have been highly anticipating her newest book. I have so much faith in this woman as an author. I know that this book is going to blow me away with some super grounded and well-rounded characters, a super fun plot, and just lots of themes and secrets woven throughout the story. I truly cannot wait to get my hands on this one. Also coming out on June 1st, we have An Emotion of Great Delight by Tahereh Mafi, which is the sequel to A Very Large Expanse of Sea, which I literally had no clue was even coming out. This book takes place in 2003 during the time when the US has declared war on Iraq, and there is a ton of xenophobia and hate crimes being committed against Muslim Americans. Our main character's name is Shadi, and she is going through an immensely difficult time as her brother has recently passed away, her father is dying, and her mother is falling apart. Shadi's life is literally crumbling around her, and she copes with it by kind of retreating deeper and deeper and deeper into herself until one day it appears that she explodes. It appears to be a breathtaking story about finding love, discovering your identity, being the child of an immigrant, and also living through a modern war. So I really loved the first book in this series, and it seems like there is a definitive tone shift in the sequel. But I love Tahereh Mafi and all of her writing. I'm a big fan of her, so I can't wait to see what she does with this next installment. Moving on to hopefully not as sad releases, we have The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson, which is a new installment in the Truly Devious series. Many of you know my love for the Truly Devious series. It's an absolutely fantastic, like top tier YA mystery series, so I highly recommend you check it out. And Maureen Johnson is giving us a new story following Stevie as she goes to a summer camp. After solving the crime of the century, Stevie has become a bit of a celebrity in the true crime world, and so she receives an email from the head of a camp, which was the place of the famous Box in the Woods murders in 1970s, because there are some peculiar things happening at the camp again. There is a mysterious message and a box with a grisly doll in it, which is related to the past murders, so Stevie takes it upon herself to investigate and try and figure out what is happening before more people are murdered. Oh, but I missed this. Apparently, the owner of the camp dies as soon as Stevie and the rest of her friends arrive. Guess that didn't work out too well. Nonetheless, I'm super pumped for this new installment. Maureen Johnson is just a fabulous mystery writer, and I can't wait to see what she does with this new story. Hopefully we'll get some flashbacks told during 1970s when the first murders were happening, and I just think it's going to be a very exciting release. Then on June 22nd, we have Blackout, which is written by Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. Now, I don't know if this is technically considered like an anthology, but the setting is a blackout during a summer in New York City, and it follows 6 different interlinked stories about Black teen love. So it says there is a first meeting, longtime friends, bitter exes, and maybe the beginning of something new. Now, I have read from all of these authors except for Ashley Woodfolk so far, but I've been super pleased with all of the books that I've read. So I'm super excited to see what these women can do when they are collaborating and telling different stories. I love the idea of all these different stories being set during a blackout. It just sounds super compelling, and I I think it's going to be a really great release to look out for. Coming out on July 13th, we have The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. Now, there's not a ton out on this book at the moment, it seems, but it appears to be a take on the horror slasher movie trope of there being a final girl surviving after a massacre. So it follows 6 girls who belong to a support group for final girls that has been going on for like 2 decades now. And my assumption is that in the present, there is like a new killer, maybe a past killer, but essentially something is coming after them. I haven't read anything from Grady Hendrix except for Horror Store, which didn't really wow me, but I've had a couple of his other books on my TBR, and I know he's like a really well-established horror author. The premise is also very interesting to me. It sounds kind of similar to Final Girls by Riley Sejr, which I did enjoy, but I'm kind of hoping the Final Girl Support Group can be even better. Then coming out on August 3rd, we have Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, which is the 3rd and I think final book in the Serpent and Dove series. Now, there isn't a ton of information out on this book at the moment because the release is so far away, and I actually haven't even read the 2nd book, which is Blood and Honey, yet. Normally, I wouldn't put a new installment in a series on my list until I had read the previous one, but I'm planning on picking up Blood and Honey very soon, and I loved Serpent and Dove so much. It was also one of my favorite books of last year that I know I'm going to continue with the series and love it. Shelby Mahurin is a fabulously talented author. Serpent and Dove was only her first release, and I was really amazed by it. I instantly became super attached to this cast of characters, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them even more in book 2. And also, like, the world and the magic system of Serpent and Dove is just gorgeous and wonderful and very unique. So it's definitely a fantasy I recommend you hop on before the final book is released. No release for this one, but coming out in fall 2020, I am very excited for All These Bodies by Kendara Blake. Again, not much out on this book. All I really know is that it follows a 15-year-old girl who is the surviving victim of a murder spree, but she becomes the suspect that becomes targeted. It seems like there might be like a speculative twist to it too as well. Now, I have not finished the 3 Dark Crown series by Kendara Blake, though I have enjoyed the first 2 books, which I did read, but a standalone like murder mystery is definitely more up my alley, so I'm hoping it's good. Coming out on September 21st, we have The Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I only recently read The House in the Cerulean Sea this year, but I adored this book so much. It's again one of my favorites of the year, and I foresee myself rereading that story for a long time. While I do want to go through and read some books from TJ Klune's backlist, I'm of course excited for his newest release, which seems to have the same quirky, whimsical charm. This book follows a tea shop owner and ferryman named Hugo, who is the person that takes souls and helps them cross over. A recently deceased man named Wallace Price is dropped in Hugo's tea shop and is not ready to abandon the life that he's barely lived. So Hugo sets out to help Wallace see all of the things he has missed in life, but a mysterious presence called the Manager has given Wallace only a week to cross over. So it is about the 2 of them trying to live a lifetime in 7 days. I am pumped for this book. It sounds queer and supernatural and amazing, and I just hope that all of the things, I hope and like truly believe that all of the things I loved about The House in the Cerulean Sea will be present in this book. So I'm super happy that I found out about TJ Klune's books. I can't wait to read more for him, and I'm super pumped for The Whispering Door. Coming out on November 9th, we have All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. The tagline for this one is, "You fell in love with the victors of the Hunger Games. Now prepare to meet the villains of the Blood Veil." This is a young adult fantasy novel that takes place in a remote city called Ilvernath, where every generation, 7 families choose a champion of their own, and they are forced to fight in a tournament to the death where the winner's family will get control over the city's magic supply. It appears that for generations, one family has won and had control, but this year each of the champions have their own means to win, and it will definitely be one for the history books. Now, I love Amanda Foody. I talk about her books pretty frequently on my channel. I am just such a big fan of her. And I did read The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman, which wasn't really a favorite of mine. It was definitely kind of a forgettable book, but I know the two of them are really good friends, and I have a lot of hopes that this will be a really amazing fantasy. I don't know why, but I just like love a fight to the death, and I love magic, so it seems like the perfect recipe for success for me. And finally, there is no release date for this book, so I've left it for last, but it is The Black Volume of the Dead by Cassandra, Clare, and Wesley Chu. This is the third installment in the Eldest Curses series, and I am super hyped for its conclusion. I don't know much about this particular installment, but the entire premise of the story is that it follows Alec Lightwood and Magnus Bane throughout different times, like situated between the other Shadowhunter chronicles, like the Mortal Instruments and the Dark Artifices. Now, I'm totally updated on the Eldest Curses books, and they are unfortunately not my favorite in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I just feel like the quality of them is not the same level as like Cassie Clare's independent books, but they are so fun. I have so much fun reading these books. They are just laugh out loud hilarious, and I feel like they really keep the spirit of the original Shadowhunter books, which is what I look for in a spin-off series like this. I love getting to know Alec and Magnus better as like independent people, but also with their relationship. And I'm not exactly sure where in the timeline the Black Volume of the Dead is going to take place, but I'm really hopeful that it's going to wow me. It's going to be full of a lot of action, maybe some heartbreak, and hopefully some like good feels at the end. So that really concludes my most anticipated books to come out in 2021. I'm pretty happy with my list this year. I definitely made more of an effort to seek out some more adult fiction and narrow down the YA that I'm actually really excited about. In the comments below, I would love to hear what books you were excited to come out in 2021, whether we share some on my list or there's a couple that you think I missed and would be interested in. I'm definitely looking for more recommendations. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon for a new one. Bye!